Westworld, Episode 6, The Adversary. Like this episode, like all the episodes because the show is amazing, but this one, I think, kind of like the last one, it had an interesting focus because this one we didn't get to see anything really with Dolores. Like, she showed up, like, the tiniest bit, and that was mostly due to, like, the recaps and stuff, but I thought that was kind of cool. It's like we didn't get any of the stuff with her, William. We don't, we still don't know what the heck happened with Logan after he got beat up. But we focused a lot on Teddy and the Man in Black in this episode. That was kind of the big focus within the world. And then some other really crazy stuff happened as well. And we actually had a surprising amount of focus on stuff. Technically, it's within Westworld, but the actual company side of things. So I like how they did the focus because it seems like that's something that they're kind of starting to do based on the last episode. It's a little bit of a trend where it's like, the first couple episodes it was like, here are the really, really important people. Here's Dolores, here's the Man in Black, here's Teddy, here's Bernard doing his thing, here's Ford and their super intellectual conversations. And then it kind of strayed off and it's like, now we get to see some of the underlying things, or certain things just, take more relevance in certain episodes than others. And I kind of like that because it's normally, I think it's a really well-balanced show when they go through all the different storylines, but it's kind of cool when the storylines have different focuses than normal, or it's within the world, but it's like, we were hardly in Sweetwater at all, during this episode. We were like a tiny bit, and it was mostly like, it was almost like the introduction to an episode, because it's like, okay, here's Sweetwater, but it's really just to be like, hey, here's Maeve's part of the story again. That's like the only reason we really got to see Sweetwater. So I like what they did with this episode as far as how the story played. Maeve's storyline was very great in this episode. She wakes up. I was excited to see what they were going to do. Of course, she ends up in complete control with these two guys. The one guy, he's super mad and stuff, and he's like, initially you were just kind of, screwing around with this burn stuff, and I didn't say anything because I'm your friend, but now I gotta say something, and of course he gets threatened, and Maeve isn't messing around anymore. She wants them to make those adjustments, and they do. They put her intelligence straight up, and a lot of her stuff was actually really high anyway, and then of course we find out someone else was already tampering with her anyway, doing secret alterations to her personality, which is probably why she was waking up in the first place. Somebody is tampering, making these alterations, and we may know who that is. We kind of get a clue as far as the satellite array stuff. It's like, oh, this is who's doing that, but we don't really know if she's doing, I can't think of her name at this point. I want to say it's Sarah, but I could easily be wrong. But we get that, and it's like, okay, well, she was the one who had the satellite array stuff going on. That doesn't mean that it was her tampering with Maeve. That could have easily been someone else. It could have been whoever came into the little theater at the end of the episode and kidnapped the other girl. So I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, she could be working with other people. She could have been doing her own thing, and then that just happened to be something, that took place. It's like, oh, there's someone in this abandoned theater. Let's see what happens. It could even be a random host that's, off the grid or whatever. Who knows? But just a lot of craziness in this episode. But I certainly enjoyed it. And then I'm going to be jumping around a lot for this one. But going to Ford's little story in this episode, we have Bernard, after he kind of gets the info, it's like, alright, I'm going to look up these anomalies. I have to go to the older sector, which I love that, by the way, because I swear, when he did that, it was like a horror movie. I was like, I feel like a zombie should jump out of him. Like, and it also shows, it just shows the evolution of mankind. It's like, hey guys, we got upgrades, alright. And they just dropped everything and just walked away and left all these computers and all this stuff. It's like, we got like leaks in the ceiling, and then like in the first episode when they go down to the basement area, all the water rushes in because like the system's messed up, like the heating is messed up, and it was just crazy. I'm like, they just left all this stuff here. It's just like computers all over the place, computers that still worked, interestingly enough. And also we got to see a different symbol for Westworld. We got to see the old symbol, which is also from William's stuff. When he like first gets to Westworld, it was that old symbol again as well. So we got to see the old symbol, a bit of a little, an extra addition to the clues there. But I like what they did with that. And, Bernard goes through and he finds the anomaly, and then 5 anomalies show up. And it wasn't as crazy as I was hoping, because I was like, holy crap, they're like 5 unregistered hosts, and they're going to be like older hosts. That's kind of what I was thinking, is that they would just simply be older hosts. But, as they go through, this information where he finds these 5 anomalies, he's like, alright, well, I'm going to check this out myself, basically. And he comes across that little boy that we saw in the other episode and the rest of the family. And I thought that was cool. And I didn't expect much from that little boy character, but when they got to that ending scene, I was super happy. Like with him and Ford when he was talking to him after the whole dog thing. But they have that scene, and Bernard goes in there and he's like, what the heck is happening here? And he tries to, it's like the motor functions thing. And he freaks out, and then of course they do like a typical TV camera trick where he's right there and he pulls him back, and it's like, Ford was he in the corner the whole time, or what was happening there? So he's like, that's enough, and he freezes them and sends them back. But we get to see like the inner workings of the little boy, where it's like the older version where they just kind of open up and stuff. And he's like, these were a gift from Arnold, which was another cool thing about that scene when Bernard was like, are you Arnold? That was like the first thing he thought. And that's kind of what I thought too. I was like, these might be actual people. They, it said that they were hosts, but it could just be anomalies that are just people, and he just assumed they were hosts because it kind of just made sense. But I thought it was really cool. It was like these were a gift from Arnold, and I told him about my family. And I knew that little boy was going to be him. I knew that from the beginning. When that boy first showed up, I'm like, that was him. I always assumed Ford made that little kid, and he was the one that threw him in there. And I guess the kid wanders around. It's actually really interesting, because when he first met him, he was like, the little boy, his younger self asked, like, are you lost? And he was like, no, just on a little walk, straight a little bit further than I should have, I guess. And he was like, much like yourself. And then we saw the boy again when he ran into the man in black when he was with Lawrence. And so that was just really interesting. I was like, there's something with this kid where he's kind of detached from the normal system, and he's clearly out in these these very outlying areas of Westworld that we don't really see too often. So I think it's interesting the boundaries or lack thereof that they have specifically for that boy, because the other family members, this was the first time we saw them, but that boy has shown up twice, and he shows up like he's really far out, and then they have the crazy stuff with the dog at the end. And it's just interesting. I don't know if we should expect more from that kid because of whatever may or may not be happening with Arnold, but I just thought that was interesting. It was like, it could be a bit of a clear message from Arnold, like, hey, this is you. Obviously, it's meant to be you younger, and this is the one that I'm going to use to manipulate you. It's your younger self, even though Ford clearly doesn't, he's like, he knows it's based off of him, but he doesn't really, he's not like attached to his younger self or anything, but I just like that idea. And then, they have the conversation where, he's talking to him, is like, I forgot what the boy said, and then he's just like, analysis. And the first thing he says is like, are you lying to me? And he's like, yes. And I was like, holy crap, this is about to get really crazy and awesome. So I was super happy about that, because now it's going to, I like to think at least, it's going to send Ford on his own little mystery adventure where it's like, something's really off now. Like, I thought things were a little weird. The reveries caused some issues and this and that. But now he gets it. Like, something is off. This host just lied to me. And so he doesn't know if it's Arnold. Like, he's kind of freaking out too at this point. So I'm really enjoying myself with that. I was happy about the way that they ended that. And then we have the stuff with Bernard where he realizes what's going on and is like, well, crap, I have to figure out exactly what's happening, and now he's lost kind of his second in command, so who knows what happened with her and who kidnapped her or anything like that. But I'm excited to see where they take it. And then we have Sizemore in this episode was hilarious, but him being mad about Ford basically getting rid of his narrative and stuff was funny, and he's drinking, and then he runs into this attractive woman, and I'm like, I know she's not just going to be some random guest. Like, that doesn't happen. It's all, if someone is talking to somebody in the TV show, it's important. Like, they're going to show up. They aren't just some random guest. And it turns out that she is kind of there to help with the transition, which they had conversations about this before. It may or may not have been Sizemore, but I just don't think that that'll be happening now based on this episode. But she's there to kind of smooth over some of the new transitions that they plan on having from the Delos company. So I'm not sure what to expect with her. Like, it seems like everything's leaning towards we want to get rid of Ford now because he's doing this crazy narrative. He's always been the guy in charge. It's just like kind of what you see in a lot of TV shows where it's like you have that person in charge, but the board just wants more money, or they don't care about the passion or initiative of this person. They just want more money, and it's like, hey, let's do the generic thing. It's faster, it's cheaper, and it'll make more money over time, or at least that's what they assume. But it's certainly faster and cheaper, so it's more money, right now. Or I guess less money spent, more money saved. So it seems like everything's kind of leaning towards all the corporate stuff is to just push Ford out. That seems to be the main thing. Like, the board of course doesn't want him to do this grand narrative that he has where he's like destroying entire towns and stuff like that. He decides to stop at Lawrence's hometown. At least I'm pretty sure that's where it was. Actually, I know that's where it was because they had one guy. He was using like some spackle to replace the bullet hole that the Man in Black did when he did whatever with his gun and he shot through it and killed that guy. So I thought that was cool. They're actually fixing up the town and stuff. But it seems like everything is just to push him out. All these decisions and all these conversations is Ford is this, but I just don't know. And everything seems to just be moving towards, let's get rid of him because we want to save a lot of money. So that's supposed to be where it's headed. But like I said, at this point, Sizemore has been the only person that was meant to kind of be the rival, where he's the one making the narrative and coming up with new ideas. And there's been no one else so far, but now that he's had his crazy moment where he's super pissed off and he's peeing on everything, he might not have his own job. Who knows? He went through an interesting transition. He was mad, and then he just went from mad to drunk. And I didn't think he'd get that drunk, where he's just screw this, and he starts peeing on everything. And I love Stubbs. He just looked up at him and was just like, what is he doing? He was just disappointed. I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed in you for peeing on everything. But he's been busted, of course. He now knows that the woman he met is actually insanely crucial. So we'll see where everything goes with him and what they plan on doing with Ford. They don't have much of a replacement at this point now, or they might not be so eager to use their replacement in Sizemore. So we'll see if they add a new character. I kind of doubt they will. I think, based on what we've seen from this company, I don't think we're going to get some random character like this person just so happens to be as good as this person who we've never seen this new character. But it's also television. New characters get introduced all the time, just like this episode. So we'll see what happens with that. But I kind of like where they're taking it. It seems like they're going to eventually get to sort of this internal struggle with Ford and the rest of the company, and that's going to be layered on top of robot revolutions and stuff. So it's interesting. It's the corporate side of it is falling apart, and then the internal structure, which in some way involves Arnold, it's just impossible to tell, that's clearly just crumbling around them. And some people realize it, but most people don't, and that's actually the scariest part about it, because who knows how crazy things are about to get. But love this episode. I like the focus on it. The Man in Black and Teddy in this one was just insane. Teddy, whatever Ford did, that little phrase he gave him about, they gotta keep on going or whatever, he made him nuts. He's just whatever, kill these people, kill those people. And we get a little bit of a glimpse, and I didn't expect this, but now it's Teddy was somehow involved in killing all those people with Wyatt, and it was kind of like he just flat out was a villain. They made it seem oh, he was a bad guy and he's insane. They showed where he cut off a dude's hands, and one guy had the crazy scar and stuff, and it's just okay, this is really interesting now, because they've kind of added this element of Teddy wasn't just there, he was a part of it. Wyatt, that scene they constantly show with Wyatt where he's just shooting people, we end up getting the second half of that where he's on one street killing a bunch of innocent people, and here comes Teddy and he's shooting people up, and he shoots the last soldier that was about to get a shot on Wyatt. So it's a crazy little mystery now. It's well, now he seems like he was the villain this whole time, or at least with the new story that they've added, he was the villain. So I just don't exactly know what to expect from that. Like, it was very surprising to see that. So I'm curious what they're gonna do. Excuse me. Because of the recap, I finally realized what they were talking about in that last episode where Ford mentioned like the last part didn't sound familiar. I thought that was something totally different last time, but when I saw the recap, I was like, oh, what he meant didn't sound familiar is that basically the Man in Black lied to Teddy about Wyatt, kidnapping Dolores, because that was how he convinced him. I was like, oh, I was stupid last time. I thought some other totally crazy stuff, but when I saw the recap, I was like, oh, that's what he meant. It didn't sound familiar, and it was because the Man in Black told him that he had Dolores. So all those theories and stuff I was talking about last time, just totally useless, but still exciting, still enjoyable. Can't wait to see how crazy things get with this show. We finally had that one scene because I was waiting for that scene to show up. I thought it was during a mission, but Teddy shooting up all those people, very surprising, and he just kills a bunch of innocent people. So they've really changed his character, and he was like, the noble good guy, and now he's so different, but we still don't know the whole truth behind it. I'm kind of wondering if he was somewhat mind controlled or how they're going to spin this story, because Wyatt was clearly insane. Like, we saw what happened when Teddy first got beat up. These people show up and they're in like like crazy animal, they're in like cloaks with like animal masks and stuff on, so it's like clearly the dude's insane, his followers are nuts. Maybe Teddy was indoctrinated at that point and he finally snapped out of it somehow, and that was why his past was so dark. They obviously never made one, but now they have a reason for it. And he meant to be a good guy, but he was just controlled somehow. So I'm very curious to see how they're going to play this story with Teddy, and how now it appears that he was actually on the side of Wyatt before all this mystery stuff changed in between, where he's like, yeah, Wyatt is a horrible person and I want him dead. But they were kind of buddies, just shooting everybody up now. So we'll have to see how it plays out. Another thing that I noticed, I didn't realize this, but we finally got the clip when they showed the stuff with Teddy. I think that is where Dolores was at one point, because we've been getting glimpses of this, mostly from the recap, or kind of the episodes to come thing, where we keep getting glimpses of her seeing people dead and like in front of a random town. We don't know where this town is, but there's a train, and I think that was the train. I think whatever town, Dolores ends up in, that's where Wyatt is actually going to be at, or at least that's where Wyatt and Teddy were during this crazy shootout. So I thought that was interesting. Obviously, it's kind of funny because technically those are Teddy's flashbacks, but they never existed. So like they have this whole story element, and they're showing flashbacks of stuff that technically never happened, but that does look like the same town. And so that I find very interesting. It seemed like, it just happens to be a random connection. Like that's where the Teddy Wyatt thing happened. But there was actually something there that Dolores dealt with where she saw a bunch of dead people. So I'm curious how that's going to play out. I'm actually excited to see if I'm right, if that is the town. Like, it looked like it from Teddy's point of view. Like, they showed the back of the town, and it was just a bunch of dead people. So that may have been a part of why I thought it was the exact same place, because, it was just a bunch of dead people on the ground. But could be wrong about that. But it seemed like the same town. Really no Dolores in this, like I mentioned. We don't get to see kind of her journey or anything like that. We still got people headed towards the maze. We get a little bit of info from Teddy about the maze and how it's really just a myth and stuff like that, and how it's supposed to be like there's a man in the middle and he made this ultimate maze so that no one could find him, which easily, based on this crazy mystery of Arnold himself, it could be just a literal thing, like he made this actual giant maze. So there's that. We still don't know exactly what's going on with it, but there's a lot to it. Obviously, there's a lot to this show, but I really did enjoy this episode. I thought it had a really good element, added a new mystery as far as what's going to happen now with the corporate side of things, because we have this woman who seemingly, Bernard's former girlfriend, I guess, seemingly to me, she was like the number 2 in the company, because you have Ford, of course, who's still like the original owner, but she's the one right up under him, like, hey, the board thinks this or the board thinks that. So it's very clear that she has a very high position within this company, and now we find out that she's doing like corporate espionage and stuff. So it adds a new layer to that. Why is she doing it? Who's she sending the info to? There's just a million different things. Of course, grand theory, is she somehow connected to Arnold? Who knows? But this episode added a lot. It also explained a lot, but mostly, it's like, here's an explanation that leads to more questions. So excited, as always, for the next episode. Can't wait to see what they do with Maeve as she kind of builds upon retaining memories and really starting to take some stuff over. So I'm super excited for that. Of course, definitely want to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And there are a couple of mysteries thrown in with this, but I want to know why you guys think they, what's happening with this satellite information. Who is it being sent to? Why is it even being collected? I want to know your theories on what they're going to end up doing with Maeve, how she's going to, kind of push things to the next level. And I also want to know what your theories are for Teddy and Wyatt's former connection. Like, now that we have this glimpse, why was Teddy suddenly involved in all this bad stuff? It seemed like he was the good guy all the time. Now they've added this new backstory where he was once a villain, that's why he's good now. So, what happened? Why was he so bad? Was he just following this guy he believed in? Was he indoctrinated? Are they going to just do full-on drugs or something crazy like that? Want to know your theories on all those things. And, of course, what you thought about the episode in general. So please comment below, let me know. And thanks for watching.